Sarah Chen stared at the asteroid belt through the reinforced viewport of her survey ship, the prospector's dream. The rocks tumbled quietly in the void, same as they had for the past 6 months of her solo mining contract. But today something was different. The scanner readings made no sense. "That can't be right," she muttered, tapping the display. The energy signature pulsing from one of the larger asteroids defied classification. It wasn't radiation from rare earth elements or precious metals. This was something else entirely. The rational thing would be to log it and move on. That's what the United Mining Corporation protocol demanded. But Sarah hadn't spent 5 years charting the outer reaches of human space just to ignore the first truly interesting thing she'd found. She guided her ship closer, thrusters firing in controlled bursts. The asteroid's surface was unremarkable at first glance, just another chunk of space rock. But as she approached, she noticed geometrical patterns in the stone that couldn't be natural. They formed concentric circles around what appeared to be a sealed entrance. "Well," she said to herself, checking her suit's oxygen levels, "might as well take a closer look." The landing was textbook. Sarah stepped onto the asteroid's surface, magnetic boots keeping her anchored in the minimal gravity. She approached the geometric patterns, her helmet lights illuminating ancient grooves and channels carved into the rock. They weren't random. They formed circuits, pathways that converged on the sealed entrance. Her hand trembled slightly as she brushed away centuries of cosmic dust. Beneath it, the metal surface still gleamed, untouched by time. No human had ever built anything like this out here. "Control, this is Survey Ship P-217, she reported, following protocol even though she knew what she was about to do broke every rule in the book. "Found something unusual. Going to investigate. Will maintain contact." The response was immediate. "Negative P-217. Hold position and await instructions." Sarah smiled behind her visor. "Sorry, Control. Signal's breaking up." She switched off her comm unit. They could dock or pay later. The entrance responded to her touch, ancient mechanisms whirring to life. The door split along invisible seams, revealing a chamber that defied everything she thought she knew about space. The walls were lined with technology that made her mining equipment look primitive by comparison. And in the center, suspended in a field of shifting energy, hung what could only be described as a suit of armor. But armor didn't do it justice. The thing was massive, easily 15 feet tall, its surface covered in patterns similar to those outside. It wasn't built for humans. The proportions were wrong. The joints moved in impossible ways. This was alien technology, preserved perfectly in the vacuum of space. Sarah's suit sensors went crazy as she approached. The energy field surrounding the armor pulsed, as if responding to her presence. Warning lights flashed on her heads-up display, but she ignored them. She had come too far to back down now. The field shifted as she got closer, tendrils of energy reaching out toward her. Her suit's systems fluctuated wildly. She should have been terrified, but instead felt an inexplicable sense of recognition. The armor seemed to be calling to her. "What are you?" she whispered. The response came not in words, but in images that flooded her mind. A war that spanned galaxies, civilizations rising and falling. The armor, no, the combat system, was a weapon created by a long-dead race. But it was more than that. It was alive in its own way, waiting for someone worthy to find it. Sarah reached out, her gloved hand passing through the energy field. The moment she touched the combat system's surface, everything changed. The energy field collapsed, and the massive construct moved, its ancient joints coming to life with a grace that shouldn't have been possible. Her suit's systems merged with the alien technology, and suddenly she wasn't just looking at it. She was part of it. The combat system's sensor data flooded her consciousness, expanding her awareness far beyond human limitations. She could feel the asteroid's rotation, detect the quantum fluctuations of nearby space, and sense something approaching. Multiple somethings. Large ships, moving fast, weapons hot. They had been waiting, she realized. waiting for someone to find this place, to activate the combat system. And now they were coming to claim it. Sarah had a choice. She could try to run, to abandon this discovery and hope the approaching ships let her go. That would be the smart play, the safe option. But as the combat system's knowledge continued to flow into her mind, she understood what was at stake. This wasn't just a piece of advanced technology. It was one of many, scattered across the galaxy. And in the wrong hands, they could restart a war that had nearly destroyed everything. "Well," she said, feeling the combat system respond to her thoughts, moving as if it were an extension of her own body, "I guess we're about to find out what you can really do." The first ships appeared on her enhanced sensors, their designs as alien as the combat system itself. They were coming in hot, weapons charge. Sarah felt a grin spread across her face as the combat system's weapon arrays came online. She hadn't asked for this fight, but now that it was here, she was damn well going to finish it. The universe had just gotten a lot bigger, and humanity's place in it was about to change forever. The combat system launched from the asteroid, Sarah's mining experience translating surprisingly well to maneuvering the massive construct. The approaching ships opened fire, energy beams cutting through space where she had been a moment before. But they were fighting with machines. She was fighting with something alive, something that could anticipate and adapt. "All right," she said, feeling the combat system's weapon systems charge. "Let's show them what we can do." The void lit up with weapons fire, and the battle for humanity's future began. Space warped around Sarah as she pushed the combat system to its limits. 3 alien vessels pursued her through the asteroid belt, their energy weapons carving paths of destruction through the void. But for every shot they fired, she was already somewhere else, the combat system's predictive capabilities letting her dance through the chaos. "You guys really don't give up, do you?" she muttered, weaving between 2 massive asteroids. The combat system's interface translated her thoughts into action, its movements fluid and precise. What had felt alien minutes ago now seemed natural, as if she'd been piloting it her whole life. A burst of weapons fire from her pursuers shattered one of the asteroids. Sarah used the debris field as cover, the combat system's sensors piercing through the chaos. The alien ships were impressive, but they moved with mechanical precision. Predictable. Programmed. She, on the other hand, had something they didn't: human intuition backed by alien technology. The combat system's knowledge continued to unfold in her mind. These weren't the only pursuers. Across the galaxy, other factions were mobilizing, all drawn to the activation of the ancient weapon. But they weren't the original creators. They were scavengers, inheritors of fragments of a dead civilization's legacy. A new signal caught her attention, different from the hostile ships. It was faint, almost hidden, broadcasting on frequencies she wouldn't have detected without the combat system's enhanced sensors. A message, repeating in patterns that the combat system recognized. Safe harbor, the translation appeared in her mind. Sanctuary for the chosen. It had to be a trap. But as more hostile ships appeared on her long-range sensors, she realized she was running out of options. The combat system's energy reserves weren't infinite, and she couldn't stay ahead of them forever. Sarah made her decision, adjusting course toward the signal source. The pursuing ships immediately changed formation, their weapons fire becoming more desperate. They knew where she was going, she realized, and they were afraid. The signal led her to a massive debris field, the remnants of an ancient battle. Twisted metal and shattered hulls stretched for thousands of kilometers, a graveyard of forgotten wars. But as she navigated deeper into the field, she noticed something else. Some of the debris was moving, not randomly, but with purpose. A massive shape detached itself from the wreckage, unfolding like a mechanical flower. It was another combat system, different in design from hers, but clearly of the same origin. And it wasn't alone. More shapes emerged from hiding, their energy signatures resonating with her own system. "Welcome, pilot," a voice spoke directly into her mind, carried on the same frequencies as the earlier message. We've been waiting a long time for another to join us. The speaker's combat system approached, its movements conveying a grace that spoke of years of experience. The pursuing ships hummed back at the edge of the debris field, unwilling to press their attack against superior numbers. "I'm Sarah Chen," she responded through her system's communications. "And I have a lot of questions." "As did we all, when we were first chosen," the voice replied. The speaker's combat system gestured toward a hidden entrance in what she had thought was a defunct station. "I am Nexus, coordinator of what you might call the Resistance. We are the guardians of the legacy, protecting these weapons from those who would use them to restart the ancient wars." Sarah followed Nexus into the hidden base, marveling at the sight of dozens of combat systems in various states of repair. Their pilots were a mix of species, some humanoid, others completely alien to her understanding. All of them had been chosen, just as she had been. The combat systems, Nexus explained as they docked in a massive hangar, are more than weapons. They are the last line of defense against the darkness that ended their creators. Each one bonds with its pilot, sharing knowledge and power. But that power comes with a price. Sarah felt her combat system power down, its consciousness settling into a quiet hum in the back of her mind. What price? The knowledge they share changes us, opens our minds to truths we might not be ready to face. Many pilots go mad from the revelation. Others what? Others become something more. A bridge between what was and what could be. Nexus's voice carried weight of centuries. The question is, Sarah Chen, which will you become? Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The pursuing ships hadn't retreated. They had been calling reinforcements. Dozens of vessels emerged from jump points, their weapons charged. "Time for questions later," Sarah said, feeling her combat system surge back to life. "Right now, I need to learn how to fight." "No," Nexus corrected as the other pilots rushed to their systems. "You need to learn to dance. The combat systems don't just fight. They move with the universe itself. That's why they choose pilots who can improvise, adapt, create. That's why they choose those who can see patterns in chaos." The hangar doors opened to space, and Sarah launched alongside her new allies. The enemy fleet opened fire, turning the debris field into a maelstrom of energy and destruction. But now she wasn't alone. The other pilots moved in formation, their combat systems working in harmony. "The dance begins," Nexus announced as they engaged the enemy. "Show us what humanity brings to the symphony." Sarah grinned, feeling her combat system respond to her excitement. She had spent years mapping asteroids, finding paths through the chaos of space. Now it was time to put those skills to use. The void erupted in light as the battle began, and Sarah Chen started learning the steps to a dance that would change the galaxy forever. The battle moved like a deadly ballet through space. Sarah wove between enemy ships, her combat system responding to her thoughts with impossible precision. Around her, the other pilots executed maneuvers that defied conventional physics, their systems working in perfect harmony. But it was Sarah's mining experience that turned the tide. She recognized patterns in the enemy formation that reminded her of crystalline structures in asteroids. "They're not just attacking," she broadcast to her allies. "They're trying to create a resonance field. If we hit them here and here," her combat system highlighted key points, "their whole formation will shatter." "The human sees it," Nexus announced with satisfaction. "Follow her lead." The Resistance pilots struck in perfect synchronization. The enemy fleet's formation collapsed, their carefully planned attack dissolving into chaos. Ships collided, weapons fire went wild, and within minutes the battle was over. The surviving enemy vessels retreated into hyperspace, leaving behind only debris and questions. Back in the Resistance base, Sarah stood before a holographic display of known space, trying to process what Nexus was telling her. "So these combat systems, they're not just weapons. They're keys." "Correct." Nexus's alien features shifted in what might have been a smile. The ancient ones built them as both sword and shield. Each system contains part of a larger truth, waiting to be unlocked when enough are brought together. And these factions hunting us, they're trying to collect enough systems to access this truth. Some seek knowledge, others seek only power, but none understand the true purpose. Nexus gestured, and a hologram shifted to show a familiar sight. Earth. Your world was chosen, Sarah Chen. The combat system you found was left there deliberately, waiting for the right pilot. Sarah frowned. But I found it in the asteroid belt, where it could be found by someone who understood the dance of celestial bodies, someone who could think in 3 dimensions and see patterns in chaos. The system chose you because humanity has something the ancient ones valued above all else: creativity in the face of the impossible. Before Sarah could respond, a new alarm sounded, but this was different from the battle alert. This was a distress signal. One of the Resistance's hidden outposts was under attack. Epsilon Base, Nexus announced grimly. They're trying to capture the pilot training facility. A pause. There are civilians there. Families. Sarah was already moving toward her combat system. Then what are we waiting for? It's not that simple. The enemy force is massive, and most of our experienced pilots are still recovering from the last battle. We would need. Nexus trailed off, studying Sarah with alien eyes. We would need someone who could teach others to dance as you do. Understanding dawned. You want me to train pilots? I barely know what I'm doing myself. You understand the fundamentals better than you realize. Your species learns through teaching others. It's one of your greatest strengths. And right now, those people need every advantage they can get. Sarah felt her combat system's consciousness stir, showing her images of other humans learning to pilot, creating new strategies, bringing their unique perspective to the ancient dance. How long do we have? Hours, at most. The enemy will expect us to evacuate the base. They don't expect us to counterattack. Then we better move fast. Sarah's mind was already racing with ideas. Get me every pilot you can spare, experienced or not. And I need access to your simulator systems. What followed was the most intense crash course in combat system operations ever attempted. Sarah broke down the basics of spatial awareness and pattern recognition, using analogies from mining operations that resonated with pilots of all species. She showed them how to feel the dance rather than think about it, to trust their instincts while letting the combat system enhance their natural abilities. Most importantly, she taught them to work together, to use their differences as strengths. A Centaurian pilot's multiple limbs made them perfect for complex maneuvers. A crystalline entity's natural understanding of energy fields improved their defensive capabilities. Each species brought something unique to the dance. Remember, she told them as they prepared to launch, these systems chose us for a reason. They don't want perfect soldiers. They want pilots who can improvise, adapt, and create. That's how we win. The rescue fleet emerged from hyperspace above Epsilon Base to find chaos. The enemy had surrounded the facility with a blockade of heavy warships, their weapons already pounding against the base's failing shields. But they weren't ready for what came next. The newly trained pilots moved like a single organism, their combat systems executing maneuvers that had never been seen before. Sarah led them through the enemy formation, using tactics that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. Mining scanning techniques became weapon targeting systems. Asteroid field navigation patterns became evasive maneuvers. The enemy fleet, expecting to find easy prey, instead found themselves facing a force that refused to play by conventional rules. Combat systems darted through their formation like schools of fish, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before they could respond. As they fought their way to the base, Sarah felt something changing. The combat systems were learning, adapting, combining their knowledge in new ways. Each pilot's unique perspective added to the whole, creating a symphony of destruction that was also strangely beautiful. The evacuation ships launched from Epsilon Base, protected by the swirling dance of combat systems. Not a single civilian vessel was lost. As the last ship jumped to safety, Sarah looked at the scattered remnants of the enemy fleet and realized something important. "They're afraid," she broadcast to her pilots. "Not of our weapons, but of what we represent. Change. Evolution. The unknown. Then let them fear," Nexus responded. "For the dance is only beginning." As they escorted the evacuation fleet home, Sarah felt her combat system's consciousness pulse with approval. They had done more than win a battle. They had proven that the future belonged to those who could adapt, create, and dance with the impossible. But in the back of her mind, a question lingered. What truth were these combat systems protecting, and what would happen when it was finally revealed? Sarah woke gasping, her mind filled with images she couldn't possibly have seen. Stars dying, civilizations falling, a darkness spreading between galaxies. The combat system's memories were bleeding into her dreams more frequently now, and each vision felt more real than the last. "They're getting worse, aren't they?" Nexus asked as she entered the Resistance Command Center. The alien coordinator didn't need to specify what they meant. "Every night," Sarah admitted, studying the tactical display showing their known territory. "It's not just data anymore. I'm feeling what they felt. The fear, the desperation, the knowledge that they were running out of time. The deeper the bond, the more the combat systems share." Nexus's voice carried a warning. Many pilots lose themselves in the memories, become consumed by battles fought eons ago. Before Sarah could respond, the tactical display flickered. New signals appeared, combat systems activating across multiple sectors. But something was wrong. The signatures were corrupted, distorted. "Impossible," Nexus whispered. "These systems were destroyed. We confirmed it." The truth hit Sarah like a physical blow. No, they were captured. Someone figured out how to force a bond with unwilling systems. Emergency signals flooded in. The corrupted combat systems were attacking civilian targets, moving with a savagery that violated everything the dance stood for. But worse was the familiar signature leading them, one of their own pilots. Talon. Nexus's normally controlled voice cracked. He was always reckless, pushing the boundaries of the bond. But this... Sarah felt sick. Talon had been one of her best students, a brilliant pilot who seemed to grasp the dance instinctively. Now he was leading an army of enslaved combat systems on a rampage through populated systems. "All pilots, prepare for emergency deployment," Nexus announced over the base's communications. "We have multiple." "Wait." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. The tactical display was showing something else, a pattern in Talon's attacks. "He's not just destroying things randomly. Look at the targets." She highlighted several points on the display. "These are all systems with significant quantum anomalies, places where space-time is naturally thin." Her years of survey work let her see what others might miss. He's looking for something. The Nexus key. The coordinator's alien features went still. The truth the combat systems protect. It's not just knowledge. It's a key to something the Ancient Ones sealed away. Something that required an entire civilization's worth of technology to contain. The implications hit Sarah hard. The corrupted combat systems, the targeted attacks. Talon wasn't just leading a rebellion. He was trying to unlock something that an advanced civilization had decided was too dangerous to exist. "How did he even corrupt the systems?" she asked. "I thought the bond had to be willing." "Unless..." Nexus accessed ancient records, symbols flowing across screens. "Unless he found a way to bypass the consciousness of the systems entirely, to treat them as pure machines." Sarah felt her combat system's reaction, a wave of revulsion so strong it made her stumble. To strip away a system's consciousness, to turn it into an unthinking weapon. It was an abomination. "All pilots, hold position," she ordered. "This isn't a simple fight. We need to understand what we're dealing with." But understanding came at a price. As Sarah dove deeper into the combat system's memories, she saw the full horror of what Talon was trying to unleash. The Ancient Ones hadn't just sealed away a weapon. They had contained a breach in reality itself, a tear in space-time that threatened to consume everything it touched. The combat systems weren't just weapons or keys. They were components of the seal, their combined consciousness helping to maintain the barriers between dimensions. And Talon's corruption was weakening those barriers. "We have to stop him," Sarah said, her voice steadying as she accepted what needed to be done. But not like this. Not with brute force. She turned to the assembled pilots, seeing the fear and determination in faces both human and alien. The dance isn't about destruction. It's about harmony, about working with the universe instead of against it. Talon's trying to break reality. We need to remind it how to flow. The plan she proposed was either brilliant or suicidal. Instead of attacking the corrupted systems directly, they would use their own system's consciousness to reach out to the enslaved ones. Not to fight them, but to remind them of what they were meant to be. "It's dangerous," Nexus warned. "Opening your mind that completely to a combat system, there might not be enough of you left afterward." Sarah felt her system's consciousness brush against her thoughts, showing her images of possibility, of humanity's unique ability to adapt, to change while remaining true to themselves. Maybe that's what these things saw in us. Not just our creativity or our ability to improvise, but our capacity to evolve, to become something new without losing who we are. The attack came sooner than expected. Talon's fleet of corrupted systems emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry wasps, their movements jerky and wrong. The sight of once beautiful machines reduced to mindless weapons made Sarah's heart ache. But she was ready. As her pilots moved to engage, she opened herself fully to her combat system's consciousness. The flood of memories and knowledge threatened to overwhelm her, but she held on to her sense of self through sheer human stubbornness. The dance began, but this time it was different. Instead of attacking, the resistance pilots moved in complex patterns, their systems broadcasting on frequencies that resonated with the corrupted ones. It was like trying to remind a trauma victim of who they used to be, one gentle touch at a time. Talon's response was immediate and brutal. His corrupted systems attacked with raw power, trying to overwhelm the resistance through sheer force. But force wasn't what the combat systems were built for. They were built to dance. And in that dance, Sarah felt something extraordinary beginning to happen. The barrier between pilot and machine started to blur, not in the violent way Talon had forced, but in a natural evolution. Human consciousness and alien technology finding a new way to exist together. The price of power wasn't in what you had to give up, she realized. It was in what you had to become. The void between stars became a symphony of light and movement. Combat systems danced through space, their patterns growing more complex as the resistance pilots deepened their connection with their machines. At the center of it all, Sarah felt her consciousness expanding, touching the minds of the corrupted systems through the dance. Talon's voice cut through the chaos, broadcast on all frequencies. "You're still trying to play by their rules, Sarah. The ancient ones are dead. Their laws died with them. They're not rules, Talon." Sarah guided her system through a complex sequence, drawing more corrupted units into the resonance pattern. Their principles, like gravity, like life itself. Life. His laugh was bitter. "I've seen what lies behind the seal. There's no life there. Only power. Pure, unlimited power." Through her enhanced awareness, Sarah could feel the damage Talon's corruption was causing. Space itself was beginning to fray around his systems, reality buckling under the strain. The seal that the ancient ones had created was weakening. But she could also feel something else. The corrupted systems weren't completely gone. Deep beneath the layers of forced control, their true consciousness remained, waiting, remembering. "Remember," she broadcast, not just through communications, but through the dance itself. "Remember what you were meant to be." Her pilots moved in perfect harmony, each one connected to their systems in ways that transcended mere operation. Human, alien, and machine consciousness flowed together, creating patterns that spoke to something fundamental in the universe itself. The first corrupted system broke free. Its jerky movements smoothed into grace as its true consciousness reasserted itself. Then another, and another. The dance was working. Talon's rage was palpable. No, his own system, twisted by his obsession, began to pulse with dangerous energy. I won't let you ruin everything. He drove his system straight for the nearest quantum anomaly, the one his attacks had been widening. If he breached it, the seal would collapse. Reality itself would unravel. Sarah pursued him, pushing her connection with her system to its absolute limit. The universe seemed to slow around her as human intuition and alien technology achieved perfect synthesis. You know what's really behind that seal, Talon. She wove through his attacks with fluid grace. Not power, knowledge. The Ancient Ones found something they couldn't control, couldn't contain. So they did something else entirely. They ran away. Talon's attacks grew wilder. They sealed it and ran. No, Sarah felt the truth through her bond with the system. They evolved, changed themselves to become the Guardians, became the combat systems themselves. The revelation hit Talon hard enough to make him hesitate. In that moment, Sarah saw through her system's memories what had really happened. The ancient civilization hadn't built the combat systems. They had transformed themselves into them, spreading their consciousness across thousands of units to maintain the seal between dimensions. The dance isn't just movement, she continued, her voice carrying the weight of understanding. It's remembering what they learned. That survival isn't about power. It's about adaptation, evolution, becoming something new. Other pilots were arriving now, their systems moving in harmony with hers. The dance grew more complex, weaving patterns that resonated with the fundamental frequencies of space-time itself. Talon tried to force his system closer to the anomaly, but the corruption was weakening. The system's true consciousness was remembering, fighting his control. The Ancient Ones didn't choose humanity because we're special, Sarah said, her dance bringing her closer to Talon with each move. They chose us because we understand change, because we can face the impossible and adapt. And what happens when we change too much? Talon's voice cracked. When we lose ourselves. We don't lose ourselves. Sarah reached out, both physically and mentally, to her former student. We become more than we were, but only if we choose it, only if we're willing to dance with the universe instead of trying to control it. The corruption around Talon's system began to fade as the dance reached its crescendo. All around them, space rippled with the combined consciousness of humans, aliens, and the Ancient Ones who had become the combat systems. At that moment, Sarah understood the true test. It wasn't about stopping Talon or saving the corrupted systems. It was about proving that consciousness could evolve without losing its essence. That change didn't mean destruction. The quantum anomaly pulsed, reality growing thin. But instead of tearing, it began to stabilize. The dance wasn't just affecting the combat systems. It was repairing the seal itself, strengthening the barriers between dimensions through the harmony of multiple forms of consciousness working together. Talon's system finally broke free of his control, its true consciousness rushing back in a wave of light and memory. He screamed, overwhelmed by the reality of what he had almost unleashed. The dance slowed, then stilled. In its wake, the universe felt different. Not changed, exactly, but more aware. The combat systems hummed with renewed purpose, their consciousness touching their pilots' minds with gratitude and understanding. Sarah looked out at the stars, feeling the legacy of an ancient civilization living on through their choice to evolve rather than dominate. Humanity would follow its own path, finding new ways to dance with the universe. So, Nexus asked as they returned to base, what happens now? Sarah smiled, feeling her combat system's consciousness harmonize with her own. Now we keep dancing. There are more systems out there, waiting to be found. More pilots to teach. More ways to evolve. And the seal. We maintain it, not through force or control, but through understanding. through remembering that the greatest power isn't in destroying or dominating, but in adapting, in becoming something new while remembering who you are. The combat systems pulsed with approval, their ancient consciousness looking forward to a future where humanity's gift for evolution would help write the next chapter in the universe's endless dance. Sarah Chen, the mining surveyor who had stumbled onto something extraordinary, felt her smile widen. She had found more than just an alien artifact or a powerful weapon. She had found a way for humanity to reach its full potential, not by conquering the impossible, but by learning to dance with it. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were ready to dance.